In this short tutorial I'm just going to be covering how to import data into Access. What we're actually going to do is import a text file and create a table from that in Access. Now I'm using Access 2007. The steps should be very similar in Access 2010, which you'll probably be using. Before we actually go into Access, I've created a new database, a blank database in Access, which is on screen at the moment. But let's have a look at the file, the information that we're going to import into Access. Now I'm using the similar but different task as an example. Let's have a look at that first. So basically the task is we need to get some data into a database, and eventually we're going to create a form like this in Access, which will allow a person to, for each outlet in the shopping centre, look at the inspections for that outlet. In this task I'm just going to cover importing the outlet data. So basically what this does is allow us to take data from an outside file into Access, and it saves us having to key in all the information. And what I'm going to be importing is this file here, which is called outlet.txt, so it's a text file. Let's have a look at how it looks when I open it up in WordPad. So this is the file in WordPad, and basically what it consists of is the first record is the headings. These are always the field names that we're going to have in Access, and each piece of data is separated from another by a comma. This is sometimes called a comma delimited file, and Access will be able to import this using the commas into individual fields in a table. Let's have a look and see how that works in Access. So in Access you go to external data, because we're going to be importing external data, and we're importing data from a text file, that outlet file we just looked at. And you need to browse the location to where your file is. It's outlet.txt, so just double click, and the wizard will literally take us through all the steps we need to do. So we're importing the source data into a new table. Access is going to create the table, bring all the data in, and create all the fields for us. So just leave it on the default option there. So Access shows us the table as it now looks. It's saying it's delimited. So what it's basically saying is each field is separated from another by some sort of character, either a comma or a tab. In our case we know it's comma delimited. We just take next on this one. On this second screen, click first row contains field names, because we don't actually want to import the first row we've got here, because in fact what that is, they're actually just the names of the fields, they're not data. This is the data, the 4 records underneath. Let's just go on to the next section. In this section it's showing us each field, and what Access is doing is trying to guess from the contents of the field what type of data is, what data type it is. I'm going to change a few of these. So the first one, outlet code, although it's got numeric data, we know from the similar but different task, if you actually have a look at the task itself, an example is given us, outlet code has got leading zeros. So in this case we've got 00929 is the field. So what I'm going to actually do is change that to a text field so we can put those leading zeros in. So Access has guessed integer, I'm putting it onto text. Outlet name is text, which is correct. Floor will be a number. Locations text. Telephone, sometimes when you're importing data, Access imports telephone numbers as numbers. You should always change that to text to make sure you get the leading zeros. So telephone in this case is text, which is correct. Annual fees currency, that's good, and opening date is a date time field. So Access has guessed most of those right. Let's go on to the next section. Now on this screen, if you had data that didn't have a unique identifier, remember each record in a table must have a unique identifier, the primary key. If your data hasn't got that, then you would let Access add the primary key. Now in this particular example you can see Access has added this column called ID on the left, and it's put numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, unique numbers identifying each of those records. We don't actually need that in this case though, because we're given the outlet code, and the outlet code is a unique number identifying each outlet. So I'm going to choose my own primary key, and Access guesses that it's the first record, which it is. So I'm going to take that as my key in this case. I click Next. Access is ready to go. Import to table called outlet. That seems like a good name for the table, so I'm just going to say Finish. It prompts me, do I want to save these import steps? In other words, if I wanted to repeat the exercise, I don't, so I just press Close. And let's have a look at the table. So now we've got a new table in the database called outlet. I double click, and as you can see, we've got the headings that come from the file have been put in as the field names at the top here, and each piece of data has now been imported correctly into Access. There's a couple of changes we need to make to this file, so let's have a look at the table. Go to the Home tab at the top and go onto the Design view. So now we've got the same table, but now we're in Design view, so now we can actually change the fields within the table. The first thing I'm going to change is the outlet code is correct as the data type as text. But if I look down at the field size, in fact the field size is for any text field that data that is created by Access. The default size is 255 characters. Very large, and in this particular case all I want is 5 characters, so I'm just going to change that to 5. Let's check the other ones. So text, once again, outlet name is field size, I think from the data 15 should be large enough, 15 characters should be large enough to hold the names of those restaurants. Floor is correct, that's a number, we're going to leave that. Location is text. Looking at the data before, if you look in the outlet file, outlet.txt, you'll see that there's only 2 characters in that, so I'm not going to waste all that space. I'm going to change it to 2. Telephone number is text, once again 255 characters, pretty large telephone number. I think 12, maybe 13 would probably be the longest number of digits you'd have in a telephone number, so I'm changing that. The annual fee is set to currency, that looks correct, and opening date is the date time field. So everything's fine. So now if I go back and if I say close this, it'll save it, and it's going to come up with a warning saying that some data may be lost. What it's basically telling me is that I've truncated, I've shortened some of the fields, and if there is more data in those fields than the size I've set, it's going to be lost, but we know it isn't, so I'm just going to press yes. Now if I look at the outlet table, it's unchanged to our eye. We just know that the database is storing, the field sizes are now set to the correct size for each one of these fields here. One last change I want to make before finishing up, the similar but different, if I look again, and I've got these leading zeros in the task, so I know that the outlet code should have leading zeros up to a maximum of 5 characters, so I'm just going to put these in manually. So for each one of these I just need to add a leading 0 just to make sure the data is correct. And that's it. It's all complete, our table's set up, and all the data is now correct on that.